Hi, guys. Thanks so much for listening to Threads Podcast. We truly, truly appreciate all our fans and listeners. If you guys could do us a huge, huge favor is give us a review on iTunes. I know we say it a lot, but please do it. Make that a priority for you guys to go out and do that on, I should say, Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or any other podcast where you guys listen to us. We would really appreciate it. Also, don't forget we have merch. Go to our website, threadspodcast.com. Click on merch, and that will take you to twistedbat.com, who hosts all our merch. Cool shirts, women's shirts, all kinds of stuff. The $24.95 seems a little steep, but that includes shipping and tax and everything else. So they're really soft, really nice, and we would appreciate it if you guys would buy some of that stuff and help support the podcast. All right, guys. Hope you enjoy this episode with Meaghan and I. Kind of got deep at some points, but we always have fun. Thanks. Hi, guys. Welcome to Threads Podcast, Life Unfiltered. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Stop saying tonight. It's not live. Stop giving timestamps. People listen to this at all weird times. I am with my beautiful wife, Meaghan, and we are going to break down episode 45 with another Meaghan DeWeird, Ben's committee partner on UTM. So, yeah, it was a good episode. It was super deep. I listened to it today, and I was just like, oh. I mean, so trying to be as transparent as possible. I want this to be a fun podcast, but, man, that was just like, whoa. I mean, it's right up Ben's alley. So I really want to encourage Ben to do that podcast that he was thinking about, but just make it like 10 minutes. Like, I feel like that's perfect for him. He really likes the Churchy Talk. And not that I don't like it. And I was more surprised how much I was engaged in the podcast. Yeah. I know Meaghan did talk a lot, but I brought up some damn good points. I thought I was pretty proud of myself. So, yeah, it was good to kind of get deep, but I also can't wait. I just wanted to tell like a fart joke or something, to lighten it up a little bit. But Meaghan was amazing. I do like Ben's idea of getting Meaghan and Brandy together.
Well, why would you guys even need to be there?
Yeah, I don't know.
Just set up the mics and just eat popcorn in the background. I don't think.
Right. I think I definitely think we talked about that too.
It would just be, it'd be a really great conversation. But
yeah, I mean, I feel like kind of that's how it was for this podcast with me. I didn't say a lot. I probably said 300 words, but
it's an interesting guess.
I don't know. You think that's low?
I don't know.
I just think it was, it was good to let her talk, and she likes to talk. And so I enjoyed it.
Yeah. The last few guests you guys have had are just people that you can tell are comfortable with talking. And it makes sense. I mean, she has her psych degree now. So I guess I always assume when someone gets their psych degree that they're going to go into some sort of therapy psychology, but you can tell she's very comfortable chatting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of nurses out there that stay at home too. So
what does that mean?
Well, I'm just saying she went to school.
Well, would you assume somebody went to nursing school to become a nurse?
Right, but I meant there's a lot of stay-at-home moms that are nurses that went to school for 4 years and, life got in the way and decided that they wanted to stay at home.
Oh, okay. I don't know. It's just a weird take. Like, I just assume she's going to be a therapist because she went to school for psychology. That's what most people tend to do with that.
How are we missing the point here? We know somebody that went to school for 4 years and went into debt and then decided to stay at home and have babies. Like, it was just an apples to apples kind of thing. Okay. It really had nothing to do with any.
I was more discussing her comfortableness speaking. Can
we dumb it down a little bit for me?
Sure, honey.
Can we put it at just a level? Sorry, I was just saying. Yeah, she got a psychology degree, and you're like, well, she's not working in psychology. So, like, she's not working.
No, I said I assume she doesn't know what she's going to do with it yet. I said I just find that I assume. I just feel like we need to start over.
No.
This got really weird. Welcome to it. So if you guys want a little insight into our marriage, this happens a lot. I think I'm in one lane and Jason's off like in a grass field skipping through the flowers or something. I'm like, I don't.
Excuse me, skipping.
Frolicking.
I'm smelling them. So, anyways, back to the topic of hand. We digress.
Oh no.
So yeah, typically how this works for at least Meaghan and I is she writes some great notes and we just kind of go, line by line, and I'm sure I'll get fussy, but
I'm gonna threads. Being perfectly honest, to be perfectly honest, I'm having a little bit of anxiety about this one because that was very awkward for me. It's
fine. Nobody cares.
I cared.
Everyone loved it, so it boosted the numbers.
Sure.
It's all for the numbers. So what did you think about the episode?
I thought it was good. It was I kind of felt the same as you. I got a lot of good stuff out of it, but it was so again, I do my threads listening. I'm a grocery store thready. So while I'm at the grocery store, which is the longest amount of time I have
kind of uninterrupted.
Right. I mean, I tend to listen to podcasts while I'm driving and walking into work, but those are much shorter increments. And so grocery shopping, I mean, I get at least an hour, so I can make it all the way through most of a Threads episode. And so I get to have all that time. And I was finding that I was rewinding it a bunch because I was having a little bit of trouble. It was very good, but it was very smart and theological.
Yeah, well, I imagine the part that I said we need to slow it down. It wasn't the part that I expected. It was just basically I didn't know anything about her story, and that's what I thought it was something. I was like, okay, this is probably the part where I say that, and I'm like, I didn't say it there. It was basically she was explaining how all these reactions or these things with her church, and I was just like, wait a minute, I don't even know, what are we even talking about? Like, that's what I kind of wanted to say. But once she explained her story a little bit, I'm like, yes. I understand now.
I think overall, I would love to have you guys have her back and get back to the heart of, I think, what originally the idea was, to talk about actual social justice, because you guys talked about it a teensy bit and got into some really great discussion about church and kind of her life story and some really good stuff about the church, but just talking about church and social justice and what that meant to everybody, I think.
Yeah, we did kind of graze, and not on purpose, and that's what I think happens sometimes is that the conversation goes to
it goes where it goes.
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of like a working title. When we do this, it's like, this is what we're working with. This is kind of why we brought you in. But sometimes things just happen. And it's hard to tell somebody to steer somebody back to a, you know what I mean? Once they're like going and they got the spirit and religion wise or not, they're just like going, and I'm like, I'm not stopping this train. I mean,
right.
Obviously if she started talking about Pokemon, I'd be like, okay, let's get back on topic.
No, it's when somebody's being very passionate about something,
yes.
And she and Ben were tracking the whole time, very similar thought processes. So they're, right, they're completely engrossed in it and having a really great conversation. Of course, you're not going to be so about that social justice thing we were talking about. It completely derails everything that everyone's doing. So, but to recap, social justice, hysterical, because you were Googling it before the show started. And then Meaghan was brushing up on it as well. And when you just told me the topic. That's all I knew about that episode. And in my head, social justice was like capital punishment. I don't know why.
We had like three different definitions of what we thought social justice was.
So I was thinking, like, how is that going to go?
I'm
a Christian. I believe in like,
damn, look at that spike by us.
Rulering.
Well,
I
still don't really understand it. I'm so dumb.
No, you're not. Because I'm not 100% sure.
This is where I kind of feel like I need to have a podcast about fart and dick jokes. You know what I mean? Like,
see, that's where like your podcast would work. And then you'd have Ben, who's NPR hour. And then it's like fart jokes with Jason.
Right.
I'm gonna Google it right now. I was going to, but I thought you would have a good grasp on it.
No, I actually don't. I mean, so you hear SJWs all the time. I'm a social justice warrior. Well, to me, that's about, the things that are going on in the world that need social justice, like being gay or whatever, or a Black Lives Matter, those kind of things.
So really, it's a political and philosophical concept which holds that all people should have equal access to wealth, health, well-being, justice, and opportunity.
But how does that? So that's saying so that's socialism.
Could be. I mean, I don't think it's a far-fetched thing to say, and that's why I guess in my head, for me, social justice meant some sort of capital punishment because the way it's presented. I'm a Christian and social justice is important to me. When you would say that sentence to me, it says those things are at odds, and that's a really interesting topic. I just think social justice and your opinion of it is an interesting topic. It should very closely tie into Christianity, should it not? I mean,
well, if you're a Christian.
Well, yes. I mean, I would gather for a lot of different religions, it's probably social justice is probably something that's important to them too.
Well, that's my point is I don't know. I think it's like a working title.
What, social justice?
Have you heard of social justice warriors like SJWs?
Mm-mm.
Really?
Yeah.
They're not, that term isn't used as prevalent as it was maybe in the last 5 years, but that's what it was about. It was everyone running to, if you were, socially injusted, or that's not the word, but you know what I mean? Like if someone, discriminated against you because you were gay or black or whatever, like they would get involved because they're social justice warriors. Like that's just what they do. So,
sure.
But yeah, I was kind of confused and still am. I mean, maybe it's better that it didn't talk about that. But see, I like bringing people in. Ben probably doesn't like it as much, but I like hearing people's stories.
Yeah, it sounded like she has a very interesting story.
Because that's what I relate to. Mm-hmm. I don't relate to deep thinking. And that's probably why I struggled at our old church is like, I need some relatable information or I'm going to be like, peace out, and our pastor now, Pastor Terry, what is his last name, by the way? You don't even know it either, do you?
I have to think about it. Continue.
I know. Someone asked me that the other day.
It'll be a shower thought later.
Yeah, right. But it's just, my brain doesn't work on that level. And I definitely enjoy Terry as a leader and just so he can relate, I guess. So.
Yeah, and I've got some notes on that too at some point, just talking about the being real, and because that came up a little bit. I'm going to find it.
Here, real quick.
Okay, I found it.
You found his last name?
Yeah, Skolten.
Skolten. That feels like such a Dutch name.
Well, it probably is. Well, he's not from here, though.
No, I don't think he is, but...
Skolten.
But anyways, I don't know how we got on the preacher topic. Just something, basically me not able to connect.
Yeah, that you connect with our church now more because it's more applicable.
But how did that?
Smart talk. That's why we struggled at our old church.
Yeah. But what happened before that? Like, how does that have to do with the last podcast? No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it was like I said, I didn't get a lot of words in. But I feel like when I did speak, I caught Meaghan in some good positions because she was like, that's a good, when someone pauses like that and then says it, I feel it's genuine, not just blowing smoke like, oh, that's interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I felt like some of the things I said, talking about agendas and those kind of things. But maybe I just have that jaded part of me and maybe they're just free spirits.
I could hear... I mean, she shared not super openly, but she did share it. You can tell there's some jadedness about church.
Oh, yeah. The Christianese. She
had a
about.
visceral reaction to like women's groups and men's groups and that stuff. So
I do feel it's really weird that they go to separate churches.
It's interesting.
Right. I mean, I respect it. She's so passionate about her church and he's so passionate about his, but
they must be fundamentally different to not be able to bridge that gap between.
Well, especially when you have 4 kids. Like it's, what happens when the older ones are like, yeah, I'm going to go to dad's church. I mean, I guess it's fine. I guess you're going to church, but we always, especially you, I think Avery does a little bit, is wraps church around family. Like she always gets bummed out when I don't go. So it would just be a different experience for us if we went to a different church. But, I think that church caught her at a time where she was at the end of her rope and they were so amazing to her. She's like, I'm not leaving. Like, I'm not doing it. So I respect her for that. It's just a little odd. Brutus gave me a little nugget. Sorry. This is terrible. Sorry, folks. Brutus is down here and his A is pointed right at my F.
What's your F?
My face. Oh, that one got you, huh?
It got me.
Got little tears going on there.
Just watching you like
Well, you know how it hits you.
Basically, our nickname for Brutus is Fart Cannon because he's so gross.
I feel like every time I hear people talk about any kind of terrier, like a French bull, well, I guess bulldogs aren't terriers, but that kind of dog.
Any breed that has a little stub tail because there's just no buffer between their sphincter and the outside world. It just boofs it right to your face.
It's right for everyone to look at. No tail covering that. All right. So let's go on to your notes as we're 20 minutes in talking about Fart Cannon.
Well, my first impression of Meaghan was just how smart she is. And obviously she's read into a lot of the stuff. I know she has her degree in psychology, so it wasn't a surprise to me that, she and Ben could throw at each other just all the terms and all that stuff because
Well, there's a lot of big words in there too, and I'm like, some of those words I feel like didn't need to be said in that spot, but she just knows them, so she says them in there.
Yeah.
I can't give an example, but
that's just where that's how I just think how smart she is. And then obviously there's a lot of theological, trying to come up with the word theological knowledge in there as well. Ben has a lot of theological knowledge because he went to school for that.
Yeah.
And that was a job of his. And so I expect him to be able to throw that out no problem. But it was interesting just to hear that it's like that high level of talking that they were throwing it around. And I actually did make a note. Jason is so quiet. LOL.
Well, I couldn't tell you a scripture.
Sure.
I don't know what's in James. I don't study the Bible.
You went to private school. Shame on you.
Right. Well, I also grew up in a terrible home, so I was doing other things trying to protect my brain than learn about James. But I do hear James get brought up a lot. I don't know if that's a great book or something, but that chord is still bothering me. I don't know how to avoid.
No tech talk.
Yeah.
I haven't hit it. Just chill.
Yeah, don't hit it. Put your phone on the other side of it, so then you don't even have to reach across the cord.
You're not the boss of me.
Yeah, I am a little.
All right. Now I have to re-feng shui. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned for more tech talk.
Decline. Unfriend. So Ben and Meaghan launched into a lot of therapy, and the whole time they're talking about therapy, and they're like, well, you just have to look and see what your therapist card says for what they do. And
the CBT versus...
What? I have no idea. I actually looked up our therapist, though, just to see. Yeah, your therapist and my therapist. Together, we have therapists.
Okay.
And so, because I just was curious if it stated it right there, and I've just never paid it any mind.
Yeah.
At least where I have looked, neither one of them, it doesn't really say, quote unquote, the kind of therapist they are, except for their credentials, which then you have to look into the credentials. So your therapist she has a few different credentials behind her name because she's smart cookie, but she's got a family therapist on the end of hers. Mine does not. Mine's more of a licensed psychologist. So a little bit of a different focus, but when you go into their bios, they do both list CBT as one of the things that they do, but that's numerous things. And I didn't really know, if you look at the definition of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, And the way Ben and Megan were talking about it, I was getting a little salty when I was listening to it. I was like, no, therapy is good. It's not a Band-Aid. It's not a thing. But once you look it up online, it really is.
Well, I feel like every therapist should be CBT and then go from there.
I think they
feel
do.
like that's the basis of.
It seemed to me that CBT was something that was more of a group setting, or if you have phobias or things that.
Yeah, quick fixes.
Yeah, and I don't know how many straight up, this is all I do is help you quick fix yourself.
Right. And Ben's therapist, he seemed to think his other one, that's what he was. But I can't believe someone that would be their main focus is just doing that. Because that would be, you would never have a long-term.
Right. Isn't that kind of the point to have a long-term client?
You're out helping people, but it's a business. You're trying to make money too.
Yes. And some of that is, and maybe that's what Ben is experiencing, is that sometimes you're doing that work for a while, just giving yourself tools of how to deal with whatever is happening right now. And then it makes you ready once you figure. So for me, I've been dabbling in therapy for a while. I actually when I started having panic attacks, drove me back to a therapist, and I just wanted to make those stop.
Yeah.
I need to figure out how to make this go away now. And it wasn't her showing me how to make them go away. It was having her, because for me, I was fighting it tooth and nail that there must be something wrong with me. Like I have a brain tumor or something that's making me do this. And it was just us working together to realize that there is something going on to create what's happening with a panic attack, but let's figure out how to chill out in general. Yeah. And then once I was like, okay, I feel like this isn't completely out of my control all the time, then we can start working on the why.
Right.
And dig into that deeper. So it's, I think CBT is a great tool. If there are just straight up CBT therapists out there, awesome sauce.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a need for them.
Oh, sure.
But it would be odd for somebody to do that. That's just all they did.
Mm-hmm. And it is hard. And you do have to try out quite a few. Very few people find the best therapist for them, great fit the first go.
Although these are on.
No tech talk.
That's kind of what a primary care is, if you think about it, because he triages and then you go to the specialist, or here's, you know what I mean? So I feel like that's kind of the same thing. Like the CBT is like the triage. And then they're like, okay, I got you through this, but I think this person can help you to continue the therapy or whatever. No? Not a good one?
Not a good one, but I see where you're going with it.
All right, I'll talk to a lawyer tomorrow. I'm done with you.
Oh, rude. Unfriend.
Said that twice.
Did I say unfriend last time? Dang it.
Just about
Unfollow?
3 minutes ago.
Hide? Divorce.
Can't say that. I already said that.
Okay. So, yeah, Meaghan had a really interesting story. Married young.
Yeah. High school sweethearts.
High school sweethearts got married young. Figured out a lot of stuff. And then there's me always wishing to hear more details.
Yeah. I mean, come on. We could have gone for 6 hours.
That's true. It would have been a long podcast.
It would have been a long podcast.
But good stuff. And then you guys just really jumped into a lot of the church stuff. So something that Meaghan talked about is when she was really struggling, she felt like her current church really wasn't supporting her, and she needed to find God and herself and stuff elsewhere, and found this church that really spoke to her heart, and how she fell in love with her church. And it got me thinking that, I mean, I like our church now. I really, really do. I don't know if I'm in love with our church or super passionate about our church.
You're not a passionate person regardless in anything you do in life. And this is not a cut, but
sounds like a cut.
Well, I mean, it's probably something that you want to, but I think that's just who you are. Mm-hmm. You're very loving and giving, but you're not like rah, rah, sisk, boom. Let's, I guess you are with work class, but, I don't know. I just don't think that, I don't think your faith is as strong as Meaghan's.
Oh, 100%
right. So,
true.
I mean, I wouldn't feel like it's a bad thing that you're not, quote unquote, in love with your church. But I think she was at a point in her life where she was at her wit's end. And so this church offered her that. Mm-hmm. So, Yeah, I don't know. Faith is such a weird thing for me. I'm going to try not to go down a huge road, but it's just tough. Like I definitely do believe and that Jesus Christ is my Savior, but I feel like I'm such a skeptic, and for everything in life, and it's really hard for me sometimes to really be like, yeah, I'm going to put my entire faith in God. But I feel like Meaghan is one of those people that do that, and that I'm actually jealous of that, like, because I wish I had just that that passion, that love for the church.
Well, you don't put your faith, not your faith, but your trust in anyone other than...
Right, but I should have God of everyone.
But I can see why you have the struggle, is what I'm saying, is that coming from what you come from, you have trust issues. There's some need for control. Crowds are tough for you.
Yeah.
So a church where exposing faults and vulnerability in a crowded place potentially can be tough.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a lower part of it. I mean, if we were in a small group, I would enjoy it as long as everyone kind of, got along and stuff. But yeah, she definitely is in love with her church, and I'm so thankful that there are people out there that are like that, because that keeps everyone rocking and rolling in the church themselves.
Yeah.
Everyone always, when you're in church and you see people that are super passionate about what's going on at the moment, always motivates, not that it's a bad thing, but always motivates you to keep going and get kind of, the spirit kind of gets into you too. You know what I mean?
Enthusiasm catches.
You feel like, especially like in a great song, and it's just kind of.
It's always, doesn't matter what it is nice to be presented with something by somebody who's passionate about it.
Right.
Passionate about what they're talking about. And I think, you and I connect with one of our pastors more than the other one.
Yeah.
And he's just super passionate about it.
Right.
And
he's in love with his church.
Yes. And it just got me thinking, when you and I searched around for a church early into our marriage, and neither one of us can really remember why we settled on the church that we did.
I think it was convenience. But I don't know
why. It was so far away from our house.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it was comfortable because my parents went there.
Sure.
And I knew a ton of people that went there. So, not that we were friends, but I think it was just kind of like, let's just go here. And but then, we got involved with church and like the drama and the production team. So it was hard for me to pull away from that. We probably should have pulled away years and years before that, but
I think we were trying to seek out a way to feel connected to our church through what they did, which was the drama, and then you helped with the production stuff, the music, and I tried to dabble in kids ministry, but at the time I was a bedside nurse, and it didn't work with my schedule.
Right.
And that's what got me thinking. You guys started talking about does the church take care of their own? And I'm comparing our old church with our new church. And that was always, and you and I talked about this all the time, that I was always frustrated at the outward focus of our old church. I feel like they did not take care of their own internally. And we still know people that go to that church, and it's still the same issue that they have, that they feel like they bring issues forward, or I brought these new people to church and they had questions and people wouldn't answer their questions about this, or they didn't feel very supported, so they left, and the leadership goes, oh well, and it doesn't, nothing inherently changes. And that's something I caught right out of the gate, that when we would pray as a church, it was always praying for Africa or the war in Yemen or whatever we were always praying for. And I so infrequently heard us praying for our own community and our own people. And there was a big church, and there's a lot of people there.
Well, they did try to do that. They had a program like 32K or whatever it was, or was that Alive?
I don't.
It was basically like there's 32,000 people in the area.
I think that was Evergreen.
Yeah. So they did try, and I don't know. I think every church struggles with that. There has to be a balance of outside things or inside. But I honestly, I mean, it sounds super selfish, but really should take care of everyone else.
You think
locally.
They should be more outwardly focused?
No, they should be in the community and then go out from there. But the problem is, and I brought it up on the podcast, everyone looks the same. You know, everyone looks, you know, middle class and just it is what it is. So there doesn't look like there's a lot of issues. But then when you look on the news, you see the Africa, the Ethiopia, the Haiti, and you're like, oh, I need to go help. And I think there's a balance, but I don't know how to balance it out in a right way or how to figure that out. I mean, obviously we have to help everyone, but it'd be nice to see more programs locally than, you know, going to Ethiopia. I don't hear a lot of mission talk at Alive. I know there is some, but
they're not a big mission church. And when they are doing mission trips, it seems to be more from a youth perspective, just kind of getting them jump started on that calling if they feel it.
Yeah.
And that is what I have gravitated to a little bit more with Alive is you and I are in this like weird middle age at our church. What?
Nothing. Middle age at church.
So there's some older people, and then there's people with little babies. Like our kids are the one 11-year-old and the one 9-year-old in their groups.
Well, we go to the 11 class. I feel like younger kids are not babies, like toddlers. They all go to the early service because they're all up, but we hate getting up early.
Ugh,
well, I don't mind it, but on Sundays, I'm just like, I want to go to late service. But.
Yeah. But we seem to really speak to the college crowd. You got farts going on over there.
Yeah, if you see me a weird face, you don't even have to address it. Just know that fart cannon has launched.
And I mean, we had a huge college crowd.
Well, I think
day.
that was specific for
they were feeding them
that day.
They were going to give them lunch, so
right.
they're all there.
Right, because they weren't there
the next
past
week.
Sunday.
That's true. But I like seeing that they're doing some outreach, and it's local. They're reaching out to, you know, GVSU. They're reaching out to local kids, and they're having people in the congregation write letters to encourage younger people. And I like that internal work that we seem to be doing within Alive. I just do like that. And whether that's because it's a smaller church or not, but I feel like Alive is taking care of its own. And I am thankful that we left our other church because I felt like a number or a nothing in our other church.
Well, it's a pretty big church too.
Yeah.
And Alive's decent size too. I'm wondering when they're going to do membership again, because I feel like it's been at least 6 to 9 months before we've seen anything. But because I think we should, you know, I mean, we've talked about it a little bit, but I think it's time to join. So
yeah, probably. Meaghan had made a point that in West Michigan, she feels like people are really good about keeping their needs private.
Yeah.
And that's huge. I mean, that's just, you see that everywhere.
Yeah, I don't think it's just West Michigan. It's just when you're middle or upper class, you want to hide everything. You don't want to, you know, and I get it to a certain extent. No one wants to look like, excuse me, that you have all these problems, you know, but yeah, I feel like.
Well, nobody wants to be the oversharer. Everybody's got those couple people either on Facebook or on in their own church homes who are the I need prayers 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so torn on that. Like we never talk to each other about it.
I know,
and I kind of feel sometimes I wish I had somebody to say that to, you know, and that's where
that you need prayers.
Yeah, that, and not be the I need prayers, you know, 3 times a day kind of person. Which it sounds so bad that we're teasing them, but you know, whatever.
I give and take. I get it if that's the way you outlet, and if you feel like people are actually going to do that and you feel helped by that, then that's awesome. Sometimes I feel like it's hey, we need prayers. Jesus knows what it's for. Amen. And there is a bit of attention seeking in that sometimes.
Yeah, I'm trying not to come off like a complete dick, but I'm just saying, it's just like the people that overshare photos. You feel you kind of, but I'm not going to judge them and say I'm not going to go
that they don't need prayers.
Right, I'm not going to go to them.
Sure.
I mean, because they really might. But back to me, yeah, I would like to have a small group that we could sit around, in a circle and talk about that with other people, just to have a little bit smaller community.
So I'm going to challenge you on that because I have twice now asked you if you wanted to just join a small group, and you have said no.
No, whoa. No, you've said no too. You're like, I don't know, it's weird or whatever.
This last go around, they said it was time to start signing up for small groups.
You never asked me.
Okay.
You didn't. I would have known that. And I'm not sure I want to. I just said
you said you wanted to.
No, I just said I want to tell people that I'm struggling.
So I also am going to challenge you in that I remember when Larry was on and he really challenged you and Ben to start praying with your wives.
Well, I barely pray by myself. I need to start there first. I know. We
I heard that and I was like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to let this ride and see. And you never brought it up, like I don't listen to your show.
Well, whatever. You're trying to catch me in something. Definitely Larry tried one or two times to ask us and then he just stopped. And it's too big of a jump for me. And I think it was for Ben too. You know what I mean? Especially
Ben. So crazy.
Especially Ben being the introvert, I think that he really struggled with that himself, and I don't know. It's a great idea. I mean, it's thought provoking and stuff. I don't know. Prayer is such a weird thing. I feel like it's
personal.
Yeah, I feel like it should be super private, but then I don't mind when I hear people saying they need prayers. I feel for them. I want to pray for them. You know what I mean? But in the same token, it's weird too.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you think about it, and I am in the same boat as you, that it feels, the thought of you and I praying together is uncomfortable because I don't think we've ever done it.
No, and it's a shame. And you feel like a terrible Christian when you admit that.
Sure. Absolutely. But we have no problem going to a therapy session and discussing feelings or...
Yeah, that's not the problem. We talk about our feelings all the time.
That's sometimes
too much.
What?
I mean, you and I.
There is never too much feelings discussion.
But I think it's different when I think this is where I struggle with my faith, okay, we're praying to a God that we can't see, that we believe in. I believe he created the earth. I believe Jesus Christ died on the cross and everything, but it's always that weird, I don't know, I can't even put a word around it that,
you can't, it's not tangible. It's not a thing that you can measure or see.
Yeah, and that's hard for me. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I think free thinkers and dreamers is perfect. Not to say that they just believe in everything, but I think it's easier for them to have that faith, I guess. I don't know. We keep getting sidetracked into my faith, but
no, I have the same. I mean, I was really on fire when I first started with Young Life, really super into it, and did Bible studies and didn't really have a home church when I moved here because there was a church on every corner and that was a little overwhelming. There was one church where I grew up. So it was easy to pick. And so I bounced around to a bunch of different churches, never really settled on one, and did Young Life. And then, you get older, you see the politics, and the politics it bummed me out too much. Some of the hypocrisy I saw in leadership, it just bummed me out, and I just never recovered from it. And then I entered nursing school and
well, there's the problem. Meaghan brought up, the church is a whore, but she's still my mother or whatever it was. And that's kind of what you're talking about. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater just because it's not just about the politics. Easier said than done. I totally get it. But the church is more than just the church leaders. It's the church.
Yes. I personally very much struggle to not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
I jump out of friendships the same way, like it starts not going well, or the other person, like I'm doing all the work. Hey, do you want to hang out? Hey, do you want to hang out? And after a little while of that, I jump ship. I'm done.
Yeah, I'm surprised we're still married.
Yeah, we had kids.
Oh, yeah, that kind of locks us in.
I know. Just thinking like, oh, I'd have to move.
Yeah, it'd be hard. You have to date again.
Oh, I'd have to hold farts in. Oh, my gosh.
Getting real on this.
Oh, I will tell anybody who will listen that the thing keeping me from divorcing you is holding farts in again.
Oh, man, what a great marriage.
But going back to that actually was my next point. And that is some of my struggle is that and that saying is very much true. And it was interesting that you and Meaghan and Ben all kind of had different opinions of what that saying meant. But that I agree that you see some of the ugly in your church and you don't just bail.
Yeah.
Right. You should try. I mean, at least try. It's not to say you stick with it. I mean, I think you and I stuck with our church for way too long. Now I can't say that I put forth any effort other than complaining.
And there does come a point where the leadership's just a disaster.
Yes.
Okay, one bad egg, okay. But when you start getting committees and whatever, there are times. Their church dissolved all the time. Friendship Chapel dissolved. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was leadership or just they weren't getting people in the door. I mean, you got to get people in the door to pay the bills.
The money's got to come from somewhere.
So, but yeah.
And that is hard to see. And you have two choices. Well, I guess you have three choices. I mean, you can stand up and bring it to somebody's attention and try to help. Bring it to somebody's attention and sit and stew and inevitably leave, or say nothing and bail. Or I guess say nothing and continue to be a parishioner. I don't know what the other word for it is. I know we're not
Congregation.
Catholics. Congregationer. Attender. And I struggle with that probably because I'm not crazy strong in my faith and I don't know scripture. So I feel like I have no dog in that fight.
Well, we don't attempt to read scripture either. I mean, that's the point. You start going to Bible study. I think really you have to just throw yourself into the church. I mean, it's be like, we're going to Bible study.
Yeah.
We're doing a small group. Like,
you know what? I think you are right. I haven't asked you to do a small group in a while. I asked you to do a couple's devotional with me.
Yeah, that was the one that church offered, but it was like, it
was a 2 a day or
2 a day.
Which I didn't know.
Right. Which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but I don't know. I feel like and this is just an excuse, and you can do whatever you want with it. But, with 2 working parents, it's tough. We're like ships passing, you know what I mean? But, I mean, you could get up early with me and we could spend time doing that. But, yeah, see, that's the problem. Like, neither of us.
You could stay up with me at night and we could do it.
That's a little different. It's a little different trying to force yourself awake or stay awake at night when you've worked all day and you're physically drained, or just getting up 15 minutes early. I
will say, though, have you done devotionals with Avery?
I have not. She has not asked me to.
So I don't remember why. I just decided one day that we need to start doing this.
Yeah.
And so she likes it, and it was awkward as hell to start with it. And to start praying out loud and pray for actual things. And
see, that doesn't bother me.
Yeah, but I'm just saying for me that it was awkward. But now I'm not even batting an eye. We got that dinner table devotional that ended up being a little too heady a couple years ago for our kids. She and I are going to start that one when we're done with this one. And it's a nice connection point. And I think once you got past the initial awkwardness, which for me, same thing, it wouldn't be that bad. And it'd actually probably be a connection point for you and I to do something.
Well, I think a lot of the awkwardness is just the public speaking. It sounds stupid.
Like with the small group?
Yeah, or like even with Young Life Committee, I never close in prayer because,
I feel like you have to pray a certain way. Like,
yeah, but that's dumb. It
shouldn't. Thank us for this food.
Well, no. That's the stupid part about it. We feel like that, but it's not like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Rochelle and Tiffany, they just...
committee members on Young Lives.
Yeah, they just have a great... I mean, Rochelle is... their faith is really strong, and when they pray, it sounds like really good and thoughtful. But I think a lot of the words are just kind of words, you know, and it's not, I'm saying to them that they're not being thoughtful, but I mean, it's just like kind of like a system of how you pray.
Sure.
But it shouldn't be that way. And like with Avery, I try to touch on the things that are important that I think are, and then that's it. You know, sometimes it lands and sometimes it doesn't. But I think that's where you and I would struggle. We could sit down and do a devotional and talk, you know, break down the philosophy and faith about it. But then I'm like, all right, let's pray about it. And then
there's so many devotionals out there. It doesn't have to be let's do a study of Kings or something. It could be, I mean, just applicable to, there's so many out there.
Yeah, no. I mean, I wouldn't be completely opposed to it at all. But I'm saying what I think the awkward part comes in, what I'm trying to say after like 20 minutes.
You bob your head at me any harder?
No,
right
I'm
now?
not mad at you. I'm just trying to say you have to acknowledge what I'm saying, and then we can move on. I think the awkward part is the praying, because it's kind of like public speaking, and you're worried that you're going to screw it up, and you know who cares? Nobody except you.
Sure.
You know, so I just think it shouldn't be weird. It's one of those weird things that you just can't figure out. I mean, Ben agrees with me. Like, praying with your wife, that's weird. Why is it weird?
Yeah, they're your person.
You both go to church. You do literally everything together. You roll in the hay. I mean, that's about as intimate as it can get. But yet you won't pray to God with each other. And so I know I'm not alone. I mean, we did that poll, and it was like most people did not, or I can't remember if it was thought it was awkward or did not. But I think it was a lot of people that did not. So they always talk about the personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Well, yeah, but you guys are married. Like, we're married. We're supposed to do everything together as far as that kind of stuff. So anyways, huge tangent.
I think it was a huge tangent.
No, it was good. It's good to talk about. So am I going to see a devotional tomorrow or Friday when you go?
Oh, Lord, no, I am not going to pick one out and then say, here, do this with me. You won't do it.
Well, I will if you really want me to do it. But not just random, like, you want to do this? You
do I sound like that when I ask you?
You want to do it with me? Jason, will you please pray for me?
Brat. Anyway, so the last question was that you guys kind of put out there was, if Jesus were to walk into your church, how would he be treated? And I had already told you this. My take on it after listening to the podcast was, it's funny that none of you pictured Jesus as anything other than a white dude.
We never said white. I listened to the podcast today.
No, I know you didn't, but
we never. Why we? Unlike you, the racist over there, we don't think about color.
Really?
Well, I mean, that never even crossed my mind.
The picture you see hanging up in church with the long robes and the beard. He's a black guy?
No. But you wanted to say, you know, he was in Jerusalem and Israel. He would not be a white guy. Well, okay, duh.
So posing the question of, when you guys were discussing, would he be welcome in your church? Would he be welcomed in and focus?
So you're saying that him not being a white guy, he wouldn't be welcome in the church?
I think he would be more ostracized. Is that the word I'm looking for? So if a guy that looks kind of like everybody else, except he's a little bit dirty and a little bit stinky, people are going to be a little turned off by that and probably not as apt to go over there.
Yeah. No, I totally get it.
But I think if he looked Middle Eastern and was wearing long robes and was dirty and stinky, less people are going to go over there. I think that's just
right. But you're like over there, like thinking you're going to drop this bomb. I could see you snickering about that. I knew what you were going to talk about. I didn't. You know, I knew that you had told me that when I listened to it today.
You said it was a really good point. Now you're teasing me about it.
No, it's a good point. But I mean, it was just like you were like, I'm going to get him. I'm like, wait, we never even talked about.
I think that when people envision their Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, they envision what
they are.
They are.
Well, right. So sure. I'm sure, you know, black people think that Jesus is black, or Chinese people think, you know, am I supposed to say Asian?
No,
people.
You didn't say Oriental, so.
Well, yeah,
good.
That's pretty bad. I know you kind of gave me a look, and I was like, what? I'm like, oh, maybe I should have said Asian.
No.
But I mean, I think that's just natural.
Sure.
I mean, same with Santa Claus.
Sure. Good point. They're the same guy.
I'm Santa Claus, damn it. Not this white fat guy. It's your parents.
Oh, buddy. So that, thanks for ruining my punchline.
No, but I mean, you bring up a good point. I think
in West Michigan, especially because Ben made the point that he looks around and it's a lot of the Patagonia, which it just is. And it depends on where you go to church.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
There is nothing wrong with that. If you want to go to a diverse church, then seek out a diverse church. They are out there. You might be the minority, and that's an uncomfortable
right.
thing.
And there's churches that are all black people that they're like, we're cool with this.
Yeah.
Like, this is what we like. It's no big deal. It's not like we're going out of our way to be that way. It's just that's just how the cards fall.
Yeah.
It's just what happens.
Yeah. And there's, some geographical stuff that happens there, and there are more diverse churches and a more diverse.
We had a Hispanic family in church on Sunday. You thought that it was like,
They did stick out like a sore thumb.
Gosh, Brutus. Good night.
Stop feeding him.
Oh, it smells just like the food we feed him. Good Lord. I think you don't have to date. Yeah, they stuck out like a sore thumb, but it was nice to see Rochelle went up to them. I didn't, but
honestly, they only caught my eye because they were all wearing jackets and I was like sweating. I had the coffee sweat so bad at church.
Yeah, if you ever come to a live in the winter, just wear shorts and a t-shirt.
It's so hot.
I don't understand why they can't get it. It's such low ceilings, so I think that, but it should work the other way too. Like I think it's a problem when it gets hot, but the air conditioning should be able to like take over that place.
Because the services are so close to each other that it's a big room of people, and then everybody leaves, everybody comes in, and it's a big room of people.
Yeah, it could be. But it was really nice to see that them in there, and it looked like people came up to them, and I was super excited about that.
But a good point though is just because you look around and everybody is white, it doesn't mean that we're not diverse. It doesn't mean that we don't have. I mean, if I, and you always call my crap on this, but you can't base it off of how somebody looks. You can't look at a person and know what's going on, knowing what you come from versus what I come from.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I always look like I was dressed to the nines too at church, but meanwhile, our home life was crumbling.
Right, and your family may have been that church family that other people wanted to emulate. Like, oh, if we could just. Those Terrys, those kids are so well behaved and so beautiful, and Judy's so beautiful. And meanwhile, you guys go home and none of you go to church because Sundays are bothersome to you.
Yeah.
And you don't know, and you don't know who's putting the mask on and who's, got an amazing comeback story. And so, there's that too, that just by looking around, you also can't make judgments on how your church is diversifying. You don't know.
It would be interesting to just run a test and just find, or you yourself just get dirty and nasty and stinky, and then go into church and see how, just to see how people would react to you.
Yeah.
If they would reach out to you, or if they would be like, oh, you got to leave, sir. You're homeless. You know what I mean? Or
do you think if there weren't as many churches as there were in our area, that people would try to make church work a little bit more? You know what I'm saying? So Meaghan shared a story where somebody caught her at an inopportune time and she started crying, and he backed way away, and that was her take on like, oh, that sucks. But I know people in my life that can't handle other people crying, and that would be their visceral reaction. It doesn't mean that they're awful people. And I agree. I think people in our church would swarm a crier, and scoop them right up. And but would your reaction to, so you caught me at a bad time, I start bawling, you give me like the there, don't cry, and that rubs me the wrong way, and it gives me this opinion of this church. If there weren't any other churches on the next block, would I be more apt to try it again because something brought you into that church?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously,
curious,
just from statistics standpoint, you would probably try it more. I don't know if it's good or bad to have all the churches around here. That's a good thoughtful
It could be
question.
either, but it also puts more pressure on you when you do see people coming into your church that,
Yeah, it's this weird thing. There's this group on Facebook, the Hudsonville, Jenison, Granville, whatever group. There's like 30 to 40,000 people in there. And someone puts in something about they're looking for a church.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, look out. It's like recruitment time. And I don't think people are, I think they're just passionate about their church. So it's not like they're trying to boost their numbers or anything. Everyone's goal is to get, to get people to believe. I mean, that's what we're called to do is to witness. But man, I tell you, it's like 100 comments and they're all 100 different churches.
Oh, you rarely see the same church mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, that's a little exaggerating, but there's a couple of mega churches around here. So,
yes.
But,
yes.
Anyways.
It's interesting. But yeah, overall, I mean, a lot of good points. It was definitely a Ben podcast.
Yeah, I mean, as we wrap up here, I that's why when Ben said to me, "Do you want a format?" I said, "You know what, Ben? This is your guest." Not that I didn't want her. Sure. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't super looking forward to it. I
think you knew it was going to be theological.
I don't know. I don't think it was as theological as I don't know. I didn't know what to expect, to be honest with you. I mean, because I feel like, and I'm not saying Meaghan can't hang, but I feel like Brandy is super smart, but she can hang too. What does that mean? Like, you can hang.
Well, but Ben probably had some trepidation going in because he didn't know her. Maybe he thinks that Meaghan can hang.
Oh, you mean Brandy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I would say Brandy is just more of a. I think Ben and Meaghan would get along fine, and me and Brandy get along fine. And that's not a cut on anyone. It's just that's how they roll. So. But I do think Ben needs some sort of outlet for Christianese or whatever it is. I don't know what he can do. I know that was his calling, and I know that's what he went to school for. And I think he's great at doing that, whatever that is, witnessing or helping people or whatever. But
you can hear him liven up.
Yeah,
when the topic does turn to
he loves
faith.
it. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's great for him. But I don't want this podcast to go down that road. That's not what I'm here for. And and if he does, then maybe we have to have a conversation. I don't know. I don't think he wants the podcast to go down, but I think he wants an outlet. I don't think he wants the podcast to go down that way. I forgot to finish my sentence, but I think he does want an outlet. I think that would be good for him to whatever it is. I don't know. I don't know what that looks like for him. I just don't want this podcast.
Well, I think what you originally set out for it to be was just, two guys and sharing the aspects of your life. And faith is an aspect of that, a larger aspect in Ben's life than yours. But correct, and I feel the same way. And you and I talk about, for me as the consumer, a podcast, and then you are putting it out there, what I would listen to and what I wouldn't listen to. And if I started the podcast that really had, just guys talking about their lives, and then they have cool people on, and then it slowly but surely turned into a faith-based podcast, I don't know if I would listen to it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, correct.
But that's just me. Just me.
I mean, but you're my wife too, so you're a consumer, but you have a bias too. So,
well, and listen, if I can get a shout out every podcast, that's great.
Yeah. So I
don't.
Somebody
who shouted out about our marriage has been hard.
What do you mean?
We've been working on stuff and it's been tough.
Yeah, it's tough.
I know.
Marriage is freaking hard.
Oh, it's so hard.
But back to that, I don't think Ben wants to do that, but I think he likes those conversations.
Yeah.
And I think once in a while is great. But yeah, you're right. I'd like to get back to our roots of just him and I talking about life and
dude stuff.
I
think Ben would. That would be a good outlet for him.
Yeah, it's so fun to sit across from somebody and just talk about things and not be inundated with outside media. You know what I mean? Like your phone or whatever, or dings going off. It's just you and the other person just talking about whatever. And I think, in a perfect world, Ben could find a co-host that he could talk about that kind of stuff. But I'm not that guy. I don't have any more time. I mean, I think I could, give my 2 cents and stuff. But that's I think that's why we work great when we talk about deep stuff. Like I have a different perspective, he does, and I think it works out that way. So that was a long process of basically saying this is not going to be a religious podcast. And I don't think it has been. I just think this last episode was kind of deep into that, but it was good conversation.
It was good, and there was a lot of stuff to relate to. If I had been that third person in the room too, I probably would have felt exactly the same as you. Like, oh, I am not on the same thinking plane as these people.
I'm way in the.
I'm a dum-dum.
I'm in the AAA baseball team, and way down the pipe. But no, I think having conversations about faith, but also not spending the whole episode on it, I think is great. Mm-hmm. I think we'll talk about it. I'm sure.
Well, I think it's good to just acknowledge that there's the realism of, you don't want to be Facebook fake either, and you're owning where you're at, and Ben is owning where he's at with that he really likes to talk about his faith, and you're like, I'm good.
Well, just as like a production note, I really feel like him and I should start recording every week, because we're doing these off ones, which is fun. I love recording with you, but then we'll have an interview. So then we go 6 weeks before we actually sit down. We're kind of I'm missing that. For a while there, I was fine with it, and then he was missing it. Now I'm kind of like, we're meeting on Sunday. In a couple of days, it's the next one, so that would be fine. But October 20, we have an interview, and that's great. I'm excited about that, but I am missing the back and forth. So
brothers don't shake hands.
Brothers
got a hug.
Maybe we take a wife hiatus for the rest of the year and then bring it back in January. So we'll see. Something I'm thinking about. Threads, Life Unfiltered. Getting a dirty look.
I'm someone unfiltered for you.
I said wrapping up, and I didn't wrap up, so we're wrapping up. Don't flip me the bird. But thank you guys so much. If you could do me one favor, is please leave a review. I know it's so freaking annoying, but just do it. I expect every time I say that, I need one new one, so somebody's got to do it. It really helps us out. I mean, our goal, I would love to be a full-time podcaster.
It helps you get more attention on the podcast from not...
Well, every time you get a review or a download or anything, it's an internet point. That's how Zane calls it. It's an internet point. And we're trying to get a bunch of points so that people look at, you got a lot of points.
Right. It moves it around to where it would be more viewable by just somebody looking for a podcast, right? Like,
well, not only that, but I mean, and most podcasts don't make a ton of money, sure. But I would love it to the point where I could talk every day and make a living on that. So, I mean, obviously that's way down the road, but when you get a lot of downloads and a lot of views, advertisers look at that. Mm-hmm. So,
well, you and I have talked about this a little bit, because I told you that I didn't really ever see the point of reviewing, and
right.
What's the point? And so that's why I was asking those questions.
Yeah, it's super important. Unfortunately, mostly on Apple Podcasts, that's the only place I really rather you get a review. If you have other apps,
what about Spotify?
I don't think there's a review spot on Spotify.
I wouldn't know. I don't think.
Right, exactly. So if you have an iPhone, and 50% of the people that listen to this podcast listen on an iPhone, so that's half the audience.
Has that one person?
As far as I know, I haven't looked. We don't get emails. You actually have to go to the page and be like, oh, I guess we got a new review. So,
all right, person.
I know. I don't think...
No review, no yard sign.
That's what I'm thinking.
You want to be on the city council?
Okay, now you're getting a little specific. I was not going to say...
Grand Rapids.
Oh, yeah. Good cover. All right, guys. I'm signing off, and I don't know what she's doing. She might be recording for the next 3 hours, so calling people to the table and getting fired. So,
oh, he's not my boss.
I know. All right, guys, have a good one.
Bye.